am privileged to have with me Muneera Carr. She is Controller and Chief Accounting Officer at Wells Fargo. And Muneera, welcome.
Well, I'm very excited to be here. The place is wonderful. The weather is great. What a great start to this conference. It's very different from my normal gig, which is all about, I'll say, technical accounting topics. This is about saving the planet, so I'm happy to be here.
Diving right in 2019, during a tumultuous time at Wells Fargo, the company brought in a new CEO, Charlie Scharf, and you came in pretty quickly after that. What did you do? What were the steps that you took to establish a really good, productive working relationship?
I will say I'm really excited to be part of Charlie's management team. He is a visionary leader. He is trying to make change happen. And so my hope is that I can play a small part in turning the organization around. With any new role, as you can imagine, the first 3 months can be, a big time for change. You're trying to learn the organization, the work, the people. Thankfully, I started in January of 2020. And so this was pre-COVID. It gave me the chance to travel to different locations, meet with a variety of leaders at Wells Fargo, understand their agenda, their priorities, their challenges, and really connect with them. And I think that certainly has forged relationships that have been helpful and are bearing fruit in where we are going as a company.
What did you bring from your personal and professional background to start to establish that?
So given my role as Chief Accounting Officer, I think having credibility is really important. You have to be a subject matter expert. And I feel like my experience as an auditor in public accounting, as a regulator with the SEC, and as a CFO of a large regional bank where I did meet with investors, I did talk about topics like ESG, all of that brings in a lot of credibility. And then you just heard the need for inspirational leadership. And being a diverse leader myself, I'm a first-generation migrant, came to this country and started in minimum wage work at Arby's selling roast beef sandwiches. So it's been a long journey, and it makes me empathetic, it makes me compassionate, and I hope that it helps me connect with people at a personal level. And that's how you can work together to achieve some of these ambitious goals.
I love it. So let us be flies on the wall. How is sustainability, how is ESG showing up in the C-suite? What are those conversations? What are the critical topics that are being discussed at Wells Fargo?
So at Wells Fargo, any major initiative has a lot of engagement and involvement at the C-suite level, and ESG is one of them. Charlie, the CEO, Mike Santomassimo, who's the CFO, they're extremely detail-oriented. They get into the numbers. Sometimes I'm actually sending him spreadsheets. That's the level of engagement. The board is extremely interested in understanding how governance is going to play out, understanding how some of the ESG initiatives are going to play into our strategy. It's been amazing to see some of the work that we've done on this front.
A lot of the people in this room are interested in engaging and motivating people in their C-suite. As a leader in your sector, what would your advice be to a sustainability professional that wants to do that?
So, you don't have to convince me. I'm all in. And I think you can see Wells Fargo as a company is all in. We have commitments ourselves to get to net zero, which includes our financed emissions by 2050. We are a member of the Net Zero Banking Alliance, so we're doing all the right things. I would say that for sustainability professionals, I would say 3 things. One, there's a lot of momentum and attention in this space. So first, don't be afraid to engage with your finance partners. With all this talk about disclosures and where the world is going, I think that it can be a really good thing for ESG. With good measurement, with good transparency in your disclosures, that can just be beneficial to what we're trying to achieve here. So that would be one of the many things. Second, to to achieve these ambitious goals, it has to be client-driven strategies. That is really one of the main ways we're going to get there. And so when you talk about, bring your business case, focus on the client aspect of the company. For us at Wells Fargo, we've committed $500 billion in sustainable finance by 2030, as an example, which will benefit individuals, small businesses, all different kinds of constituents. So that would be sort of the second thing, is focus on some of that.
So what I'm hearing is that your colleagues in the C-suite are more comfortable with ESG topics. They're more comfortable. They're getting to an expert level even with sustainability. So what I'm curious about is the rising importance of ESG in accounting. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So, and now because I'm the accountant in the room, I have to say, accounting is the language of business. It has a lot of strict rules. It has very little diversity in practice. It's got a lot of good disclosure and requirements under Sarbanes-Oxley to have really good controls. And all of this makes it easier for investors who invest in companies to really compare companies, look at financial results, and be able to invest. So I'm going to take that and now bring it into ESG world. In ESG world, as we're thinking about creative solutions, sustainability bonds, we just heard about those. Those can have some creative features. And anytime you bring in creative features, the world of accounting will say, well, we are going to find a way to measure this and make sure that we are comparing apples to apples what the different companies are doing. We have to engage our auditors to look at anything we do on the sustainable finance front to make sure that we are indeed using the money for the purpose it's intended, as an example. And I'll take this a step further. To me, the intersection of ESG and accounting is really important, because I'm hopeful that as I work with the ESG professionals at Wells Fargo, that some of this discipline can also move into the world of ESG. And I say this because if this doesn't happen, then people have a lot of air cover. They have air cover to present the results the way they want, and everyone has a slightly different view. It makes comparability really difficult. And really for us to make some of the progress, bringing this discipline in, making sure we close the data gaps is going to be critical.
Can you talk a little bit more about how you see this rising importance of ESG playing out in the banking sector overall?
Absolutely. I mentioned, client-driven strategies. That has to be front and center. For us at Wells Fargo, you saw those numbers on sustainable finance, and very specifically, you heard the mayor talk about the city of Phoenix, and we are one of the lead underwriters in that space. In the last 3 years, we've been in the top 5, as an example. We've made our own investments, about $13.3 billion of investments in clean energy projects. So as a company, there is a lot that we're doing from a banking standpoint. We are also a regulated industry. And generally, regulated industries are leading the way. We have to think about how we are getting affected by climate change, and we have to incorporate some of the climate change into our own risk management framework. At the same time, we have to think about how can we influence and drive outcomes. How are we going to achieve these targets? There's a lot of talk about putting targets out there, and I can tell you as a company, we're really serious about how are we going to actually get there, which means that we have to study our numbers. We have to think about how it affects our strategy. And we have committed to providing interim targets on the most carbon intensive industries this year in oil and gas, as well as in power, and really thinking about what if scenarios and pressure testing it. And some of this goes back to your question about the C-suite and the dialogue that occurs at that level.
Looking into the future, and this is my last question, given the urgency in sustainability, what do you see in terms of the adjustments that are needed in accounting, and how is Wells Fargo handling that?
So I'm passionate about both topics. I think working together is going to be the key, and raising awareness and education. And when I think about in the world of accounting, there's always new things that we have to account for. And I'll give you an example, agile investing in software, and how are you going to actually get it right? Similarly, ESG is an evolving world. And since I am passionate about bringing some of that discipline and rules, for us, it is about having a dialogue with A4S, which is Accounting for Sustainability, or the Value Reporting Foundation, which are all organizations who are trying to bring some consistency to methodologies. It's engaging with the American Bankers Association, because there are small banks, there are large banks, and the large banks can lead the way for smaller banks where we can make some difference in smaller communities. So it's a lot of engagement, education, awareness.
Muneera Carr, thank you so much for being with us.
Happy to be here.